Okay, this is letting me go. Why is this not letting me connect? Oh, for goodness sakes. We've been gone so long, you know what? They've changed things, so I'm trying to figure out how.
Now you probably have to ask the AI.
Oh, God. Good heavens.
Facebook.
Okay, so if anybody's listening and wondering what the heck's going on, we've been gone. This is a show that's been here for years now. We've been gone a while, and I'm trying to figure out what the devil's going on and how this works. No. I have a co-host here who you guys probably can't hear because I can't figure out how to bring you in. Why can I not figure out how to bring you in? Okay, let me try it over here. Live stream. Dang it, this is not working.
This is kind of riveting content.
Yeah.
Our viewers coming back.
Okay, what did I call it? Which one is it? Because I think I just figured it out. You can okay, Amisha can hear you. That's good.
Okay.
But you can't see you. Okay, okay, that's what I'm looking for. Let's try this, and then if we can hear you at least where we want to be. Okay. So Amisha, Brian, talk for a second, and Amisha, let us know if you can hear him. Okay.
Hello, all the people out there.
If everybody can hear him okay, let me know. I can't figure out how to bring him visually into the stream. Something I'm going to have to work on. It wouldn't be a live stream without technical difficulties. I'm sorry to say. Okay, apparently you're a little quiet, but they can hear you. Very good.
Try to be closer to the microphone.
Yep, if you can turn it up too, that might help.
Let me see if there's I don't even know where the controls.
Fair enough. And if you can't, you can't. We'll work with what we've got. Hey, Teresa, welcome back. I'm so glad you made it. So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to go and quick post this around Facebook and whatnot to let people know where we are and hopefully come find us. Brian may be a little quiet because this is the first live stream since like last summer. So by the Murphy's Law of live streams, there has to be technical difficulties.
I'm also on a new laptop.
Yeah, this is not your fault. As much as I want to blame you, this is not your fault. But good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to tonight's episode of Paranormal Encyclopedia. We are back after a very long delay. For those of you who are longtime fans, welcome. If anybody new happens to be tuning in, welcome to you as well. For the long timers, this is probably going to be a lot of old material because we've been gone so long. I kind of want to bring us back to basics and back on mission, if you will. So we're going to be talking about who I am, who Brian is, what the show's about, that kind of thing. We have chat live. We always do because we always do these as live streams. So if you are listening and you have a question, comment, concern, feel free to share. It's why we're here. and hopefully we'll have a little bit of fun. So, for those of you who do not know, hi, my name is Kevin Mears. I am a demonologist and a paranormal investigator. I am coming up this summer will mark 30 years as a demonologist. And why, yes, I do feel quite old. Thank you. No, it was even funnier just because commenting on something else that, yeah, you know what? I've been playing D&D for 35 years now. So that's something else to feel old about. Isn't that nice? I'm an old man. I'm 48, or I will be 48 in July. I'm 47 at the moment. And Brian, why don't you tell everybody who you are and how you factor into all this?
Well, I'm Brian McKinley. I'm a author and kind of minor fan of the paranormal, mostly in the area of vampires. Kevin and I kind of fell together at a convention one time and met and started talking and struck up a friendship. And he eventually invited me to be his co-host. As for what I bring to the show, I'm still kind of figuring that out. But mostly I am kind of the Scully to Kevin's Mulder, and try to keep things grounded in facts and reality. And Kevin's spiritual, I'm not really, so it's kind of that sort of thing. I try to bring a outside perspective and ask the questions that I think that an audience member would want to ask.
And Teresa, I'm right there with you. My, not 40th, but when is it? 94, 20, or no, actually, I'm sorry, 40th. My 40th high school reunions this year because I'm class of 1994. The thing that Brian is underselling himself on, in my opinion, is he does bring a very grounded perspective to the show, which I think is a good thing. For those of you who don't know us, why am I a demonologist? What gives me the right to use that title? Well, some of you may have heard of Ed and Lorraine Warren. If the name doesn't immediately ring a bell, if you have seen any of the Conjuring movies or the Conjuring universe, those are all based to varying degrees, I might add, on an actual couple that were the only Ed and Lorraine Warren. Ed Warren is the only lay demonologist ever formally, at least within the United States. He was the one that was recognized by the Roman Catholic Church, possibly worldwide. I've seen debate about that. So Ed passed away sadly in 2006, and we lost Lorraine, I want to say 2017. I'd have to look it up to be certain. But the last student Ed would teach before he died was a gentleman by the name of Lou Gentili. Lou Gentili was the host of the nationally syndicated Lou Gentili Show. It was one of the very first internet radio shows. We're talking late 90s, early 2000s. It was broadcast all over the world both because it was internet and because we were picked up by various stations. So I was Lou's main student, main hench monkey, and for many years the co-host of the Lou Gentili Show. If you look here on YouTube, and I highly recommend you do, just don't do it right now because we're on and we want the views. There is a series of videos called Amityville Horror Week, Lou Gentili. 1 week while we were on air, we had George Lutz, Kathy Lutz, Chris Lutz, Lorraine Warren, because Ed and Lorraine were also the investigators for the Amityville horror case. The first reporter to come on the scene of the Fayette murders, the people that did the History Channel special in the early 2000s about the Amityville horror, all on the show, and at least a portion of those interviews is available on YouTube. I'd go check it out. It's pretty cool. So I have investigated ghosts and demons, fairies, and other strange things throughout Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware. And I am very proud to say that I did my first international ghost hunt last year when I made a trip out and went looking for ghosts in Romania. And you
still have to put that footage up.
Yes, I do. I have not a whole lot of footage, but I have a couple of brief spots I did with a good friend of myself and a friend of the channel, Dacre Stoker, the great. Hey, Lisa for Truth, good to see you. But Dacre Stoker is the great grandnephew of Bram Stoker. He's a wonderful human being. We've had him on the show a couple of times. You can find him elsewhere on YouTube. He wrote Dracula the Undead, which is the sequel to Bram Stoker's novel. And then more recently, he wrote Dracul without the A at the end, which is a prequel to the novel. He's also done a bunch of academic work. He was part of bringing The Powers of Darkness, which is the Icelandic version of Dracula, which is very different than the novel you know, to the United States. He's a very good guy, but he did a tour of Romania last year, and I was fortunate enough to go with him. We did video at Borgo Pass. We did video I think we did video at Bran Castle. We did video in all these very cool cities and places we stopped along the tour. It was an absolutely amazing experience. They're going again this Halloween, and I highly recommend checking it out. And Lisa, that is an excellent question. Lisa for Truth asks if there are any relatives of Vlad living. The thing is that since Vlad died in 1476, records of his bloodline are a little scarce. There's definitely some speculation that someone quite famous may be a relative of Vlad the Impaler, though. Brian, do you know who?
I remember reading that. Like, wasn't part of the English royal family like was rumored to be
King Charles? Descendant? King Charles, in fact, is supposed to be at least related to Vlad, which is not a giant stretch of the imagination, just given the reality of inbreeding in royal lines and things like that through the Middle Ages.
Oh yeah, they intermarried a bunch.
Yeah, it is known that he owns land in Transylvania. Apparently, a few months before we were there last June, he was there. So, and he's very much big about that. And I will say that one of the most exciting experiences I've had as an investigator, and this is saying something quite honestly, happened to me at Snagov Monastery. For those of you who don't know, Vlad the Impaler, Vlad Tepes, is where we get the name Dracula. He was a 15th century Wallachian, which is now part of Romania. He was not he did not rule over Transylvania, though he was probably born there. They're not sure. Again, records being what they aren't certain. But when he died in 1476 in battle against the Turks, nobody's quite sure what happened to his body. There's three major theories. There is a monastery outside of the city of Brasov that people are now relatively recently claiming is where he was buried. A few years ago, they found a tomb in Vienna with a family crest that looked very similar to Vlad's crest. But where most historians think he was buried is a monastery called Snagov. Snagov was an older monastery that Vlad helped rebuild, and he had a lot of ties to it. The fun thing is that in the 1930s, a group of archaeologists dug up the grave. They didn't find a body. They found clothing. There's one of the archaeologists present in his report claimed that they actually found cattle bones. But none of the other archaeologists, as I understand it, backed up the story, so we don't know. But I'm a ghost hunter, and I'm in Romania. And obviously, and I talked to Dacre and the tour leaders who are Experience Transylvania is the tour group that I went with. They are absolutely wonderful people. I highly recommend checking them out if you want to go there. They do tours of other parts of Europe as well. But they all were fine with it. So I brought some of my equipment with me, and I brought out a device called the Spirit Box. We've played with it on the show before. If you want to go back, I'm not going to dig it up right now, but we'll do it again sometime in the near future. It is a device based on Thomas Edison's designs for a phone to the dead, a way for the living to talk to ghosts. The way that it works is it's a AM/FM radio, but it's set to cycle through the channels at 100, you could set it between 100 and 500 stations every millisecond. And sometimes you can get coherent words and things coming out of it. There's decidedly an argument to be made that what you're hearing is just stray bits of radio signals, or what's called audio pareidolia, which is the same sort of thing that goes into backwards masking, where you play a record backwards and you hear satanic messages. We need to do an episode on that, because I've been seeing a whole bunch of videos lately of talking about Disney movies and how if you play the music backwards, you get Hail Satan and nonsense like that.
Oh,
so we're gonna be revisiting this topic because it's a pet peeve of mine. As
I buried Paul.
Yeah, oh, no, Paul is dead.
I thought the message that they always heard was "I buried Paul."
Usually it's Paul. We'll look into it, but usually I've always heard is Paul is dead. Of course, the really funny bit is there are a couple of Weird Al songs that do have messages if you play them backwards. How do we know for certain they have messages if you play them backwards? He planned it that way.
Of course.
And they're like absolutely silly nonsense. I think one of them is like "The Devil Likes Cheese Whiz" or something like that. It's something ridiculous.
It's totally Weird Al.
Yes. But at any rate, back on point. I turn this device on. I get it cycling, and I hear out of it, "Yeah!" So I can't prove it. There are other explanations for it, but it is my personal headcanon, because it is the funniest possible answer, that I got while literally standing over his grave. Dracula yelled at me. And I will say this. I've been in a lot of haunted houses. I've met people possessed by demons. I've been doing this nearly 30 years. I'm not psychic by any stretch of the imagination, but after 30 years, you get a little bit of a sense for if there's something there or not. And I've never in my life felt a presence somewhere like in that monastery. Historians back me up on this, because the best evidence all says it's true. But from that perspective alone, I truly believe that Vlad is buried at Snagov Monastery.
See, I think you were standing on his ghost foot.
Probably.
That's why he was yelling.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think I was standing on his ghost foot. The one tragedy, because there's the obvious question people always ask in situations like this, which is or to put it in context, why would a 15th century warlord speak English? Which is a good question. And there's two explanations for this that are very simple. One is that I turned the thing on. I hadn't said anything. So there's no English to respond to. It's just a raw reaction. The other is my tour guides were interested and helpful. I asked them to translate questions I was asking for EVP into Romanian for me, because I don't expect a 15th century warlord to speak English. I wouldn't be totally shocked if he did, because he was actually pretty intelligent. But English wasn't the universal language it's kind of become. So I wouldn't expect him to.
Actually, at that point in history, I don't think English would have even been quite in the form that we recognize it, because that was pre-Shakespeare even. The 1400s. I mean, English would have still been kind of in that medieval-ish kind of period, I think.
Early modern English, which is the language of Shakespeare, is around the late 15th century.
Okay.
Particularly, you start seeing it form into modern English. Funny enough, in 1476, which is when the printing arrives in England, which is a lot of what standardizes language around the world. Around the world is writing it down, printing it.
Right, I remember that.
Yeah.
And the creation of spelling.
Yeah. Oh, actually, they don't standardize spelling until later.
Oh, I know, but I mean that was the early. That's the first time it ever occurred to anybody to standardize the spelling of words.
Although to keep in mind, what time period is Shakespeare? I'm the history major. I should remember these things.
1600s.
Yeah, that sounds right. But 16, yeah, he died 1616. But what I was going to say is the Canterbury Tales, which is not modern English, but it's something. It's close enough to modern English. You can understand it if you with a little bit of work. I've read. It's what they call Middle English. I've read the Canterbury Tales in Middle English. You don't. It's Old English is another language entirely, but Middle English is fairly close to modern English, or at least close enough for government work, if you like.
Yeah.
So you could reasonably. I could have maybe. Yeah, we could have maybe gotten by. There would have been some issue of pronunciation and meanings of language.
Yeah.
Now I'm curious. I'm looking at. But yeah, that's kind of who we are and what we do. Brian is our expert on vampire folklore. And dear heavens, people, what he knows about vampire folklore is amazing.
And I don't even come close to certain other people that I know who are like actual scholars. I'm a casual like fan of the genre who has done some research and whatnot, but there's so much more that somebody who really knows their stuff could do to me. So I don't call myself an expert.
But you have a pretty good idea of what you're talking about, which is a start. Granted, if we can get people that know more on the show, I'm always welcome to it. We have a whole. I have not been dormant the last almost year since the last time we had the show. I have made a number of inroads with various interesting new guests. That I'm going to start reaching out to. I don't want to jinx anything by naming names, but there's some folks I met while I was in Romania. There's a very nice English gentleman of the doctorly persuasion I met at a time travel themed restaurant last year, who's expressed at least some interest in joining us. Although we need to talk to his agent, and we need to figure out where we left the email for his agent. And then there's at least one big writer that we've been trying to get since the day the show started. That Amisha got a hold of at Comic-Con, and was like, he'd do it, but it would be like a month or so. Granted, that was back in July of last year, so that doesn't mean it's still that his schedule is free. But we're going to try and reach out to him as well. And dang it, I will just keep poking until either there's a restraining order filed or I get the damn interview. Preferably not the restraining order, obviously. Where Brian and I are also in. That's the other thing that many of you know. I've been in school. I am coming up. I just finished my third semester, and happily, I'm exactly 2 classes away from my associate's degree in history. I have been putting on hold for a while now because, funny enough, going to college full time and working full time doesn't leave you a lot of spare time. But I am in the process of researching to write a book on the Salem witch trials. I am not aware of a demonologist who has written a book on the subject. The closest I know of is a gentleman by the name of Montague Summers, who I would not call a demonologist, but he was a early 20th century occultist who would be one of those people that definitely qualifies as an expert on vampire folklore and werewolf folklore and witchcraft.
I've read his books.
The parts that you can.
Yeah.
For Brian understands this, but for those of you who don't, well, actually, Brian, why don't you explain the joke I'm making there for the people who don't know?
Oh God.
You know what I'm referring to, right?
I think it's been a while since I read
Fair enough.
his books. I know that I was mostly concentrating on how accurate I thought his stuff was compared to other things that I had read. And I mean, clearly he's coming at it from a much earlier time period.
True.
Than most, so I gave him a little bit of slack for that. But yeah, he's got some interesting stuff, but some of his theories are rather wild.
Oh, no question. Actually, what I was referring to is, to his credit, he likes to quote primary sources. So the frustration of the reader, he doesn't usually translate the source. So you get a block of text in Latin or, Hungarian or whatever.
You're right. I think I just skimmed over those and didn't even pay attention.
It's like you needed to be fluent in a half a dozen languages to read the entire book, because he's not going to tell you what it means. What Brian's referring to, which is also a very valid point, is Summers was a true believer in everything. He believed in vampires. He believed in werewolves. Not only did he believe in witches in the satanic, devil-worshipping sense, he thought that the church was pretty much justified in the witch trials. So he's a screwball of a narrator, a bit of a screwball of a narrator. On the other hand, he's not weighed down by, this isn't real, so I have to make up an explanation for it. It's just, this is what vampires can do according to this country's folklore. It's a weird freaking read, needless to say. But because of the fact, I don't know how much, I mean, he wrote a number of books on witchcraft, but from what I've seen, most of it's about the European trials, which is fair given there were 200 trials in 200 people accused in Salem, and another 14 cases that happened before Salem in Connecticut and elsewhere in New England, as opposed to thousands in Europe. So there's a much bigger sample size to discuss in Europe for obvious reasons. But how about you, Brian? I know you're working on some stuff. For that matter, talk about the books that you have out.
Oh, yeah, well, let's see. I have three novels that have been released that are available on Amazon. There's Ancient Blood, which is my first one.
It is excellent.
Yeah, I mean, you got to give it.
I think it's a very good book. I don't think you need to say more, justify it.
It was a first novel. There have been some criticisms that I feel are legitimate, but it's like, well, it was my first full-length attempt at a novel. So, but I learned quickly from that. There's Ancient Enemies, which is the sequel. There is supposed to be a third one if I can ever get it plotted out and figure out what the hell to do. Then there's Drawing Dead, which is a kind of spin-off with a minor character from the other two books and goes into his backstory, and it's the beginning of what I plan to be a series of novels about him that go through the decades in America.
And let's not forget Vampire Gangsters.
Yes. Yeah, it deals with vampire gangsters. So if you like either of those genres, it's a fun little mashup. I
would recommend all of Brian's books. He does not pay me to say that. And we've got a new way to work on getting Brian to get the let out of his pencils and get back to writing, and to get me back to writing, because this book on Salem is never going to happen if I don't get back to doing the research. Nose back to grindstone.
Yes. joined forces with other writers and formed a critique group to motivate us to actually get to work.
Critique League of America.
Yeah. It's like a really watered down Justice League.
Yeah. But that's okay. We don't need to be the Justice League. I think the guys should all be fighting over who gets to be Batman if we were.
Quite true.
Not that all the other options are terrible, but it's still Batman. But yeah, that's who we are. That's what we do. We like to talk about cases that I've done over the years. We like to talk about folklore. We talk plenty about vampires. Actually, there'd be an interesting topic. It might not necessarily a big it's too big a topic to deal with today, but maybe for Sunday. One of the most famous paranormal thingamajiggers in the Western Hemisphere. The Bermuda Triangle.
Oh boy. the most overhyped bit of nonsense, I think.
I agree with you entirely.
Yeah.
Which is also kind of why I want to talk about it.
Yeah. Oh no, it's a great thing to debunk.
Yes.
You know, just how many people have watched a, like kind of misleading History Channel documentary and become fascinated by this Bermuda Triangle thing that it just isn't a thing. It's
okay, maybe we could cover it now. It's like, okay, I was thinking you might want time to look into this, but maybe we could talk about this now. Because we have the same conclusion here. So everybody knows the story of the Bermuda Triangle. It's an area between Florida, Bermuda, and the Bahamas, drawn out as a triangle on a map. Famously, everybody says planes, ships. I've even heard satellites supposedly disappear in it.
Yeah.
And Brian is absolutely right. It's not true. A newspaper man made the story up. Other writers thought it was a neat story. They picked up on it. And the reality is, if you look at all the disappearances credited to the triangle, a whole bunch of them don't exist.
Yeah.
They didn't disappear. They were made up. Writers just invented ships and planes. Of the ones that then there's the other problem. You know the big problem with the ships that did exist?
I think some of them didn't actually disappear.
True. But the ones that did disappear.
No. Just that there are a dozen logical explanations for, what would have happened to them.
Also true, but that's not what I was getting at. Here's the thing. Authors have a tendency of looking at the path that a plane or ship was taking, and if a ship disappears, that at any point in its voyage might have passed through the triangle. They blame it on the triangle. There's at least one example of a ship that writers frequently say disappeared in the Bermuda Triangle that actually disappeared in the Pacific Ocean.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't surprise me. I mean, statistically speaking, I think like Lake Michigan is far more dangerous and has far more shipwrecks and lost ships than the Bermuda Triangle ever did.
I'd have to look it up, but I'm entirely certain to know the exact numbers, but I'm pretty much positive you're right. Especially because here's the thing to keep in mind. Bermuda, Bahamas, Florida. There are major tourist cruise lines passing through there every day. Major flights passing through there every day. Major shipping lanes passing through there. It was a big part of the slave trade back in the day. Thousands of ships probably pass through the triangle every single day and don't disappear.
Yep.
And on the other side of that is ships and planes vanish pretty often. Because if something goes down, the ocean is really, really big, And one ship is a really, really tiny thing to go looking for in it. And one fighter plane is even smaller. Yeah.
Before it went down, then people look in the wrong place. So, of course, it's never found.
Absolutely true. In fact, there's a famous bomber flight that vanished.
Yeah.
And there's a very simple explanation for what actually happened. Because you'll hear, experienced pilots vanished over the triangle and had crazy transmissions. No. A training flight of bombers. The captain was experienced. Everyone else was. The guy leading the mission was experienced. Other people weren't. Had a little bit of trouble over the triangle reading their instruments. Then they talk about flying back. They think they're back on course, and they see the Florida Keys. But they expect the Florida Keys to be on the left side of the ship, the plane, and they're on the right. So they course correct, or other way around. They're on the left. They should be on the right. Right, because if you're flying with the Florida, north with the Florida Keys on your right, you're going to come up over the Gulf of Mexico, and eventually you're going to hit land. It's simple geography. So that's very sensible, except down in the Bahama Islands, there is a chain of islands that look very similar from the air to the Florida Keys. And if they flew with that set of islands to their right, instead of flying up into Texas and Florida and the Gulf of Mexico, they'd be flying further and further out to sea into the Atlantic.
Yeah.
They just ran out of gas and crashed. And the reason nobody found them is when they're looking, like you said, they're looking in the wrong place. They expect them to be in the Gulf of Mexico. They're actually somewhere in the Atlantic.
Yeah.
And again, the ocean is a really big place. Planes are very small. People go missing in the ocean all the time. Not supernatural.
Well, the best common sense debunking that I've ever heard of the whole thing was summarized quite well. They said, okay, so if you look at insurance underwriters that deal with insuring ships and planes and whatnot, if the Bermuda Triangle represented any kind of a particular hazard, obviously they would note it and they would charge more for ships and things going in the course through there. They don't.
That's a really good point.
They have higher rates for many other places, not the Bermuda Triangle. So if the insurance people haven't figured out that place is dangerous, then it's probably not dangerous.
The closest thing I know of to an actual explanation, actually, as I understand it, isn't in the triangle itself. But a little bit south of there's a very old, to the point that it was noticed by Columbus, old hiccup in the magnetic fields of the Earth that screws with compasses and other types of electronic navigation equipment.
Okay. Because
there's a story from one of Columbus's voyages that the navigator came to Columbus and is like, the devil's got a hold of the compass needle, because the needle was just spinning around and around and around. There's nothing paranormal going on. Again, it was and we don't know for sure it's where he was, but we know that there is this one space. It's very likely where he would have been. That's nearish the triangle, but it isn't in the triangle. That tends to make electronic equipment go a little funny.
Yeah.
For a very well understood scientific reason, not demons.
Sure.
And the thing is, another good thing for newcomers to realize about the show is, we're going to go a lot. If you watch us, we go down a lot of really weird rabbit holes. I admittedly believe in some stuff that people think is very strange. And I've had lots of funny experiences with that over the years. But we do try to keep things grounded. When I did the show with Lou back in the day, I was the Scully to his Mulder. And made a bit of a name for myself embarrassing crackpots. Because I don't like people who prey on the innocent. And the thing to and especially those who prey on the desperate. One thing to realize about my services as an investigator, and this actually just came up because I was just speaking with someone who's having a particularly unpleasant case of demonic activity the other day. She tried to give me money. We went out to meet, nice, neutral. I wasn't sure it was a case. I thought she just needed some advice. Turns out it's a case as well. So I was like, okay, let's just get together at IHOP because the diner, quote unquote, right up the street for me is not a diner. It closes at 8:30. How can you call yourself a diner and be closed at 8:30?
Especially in New Jersey, that's heresy.
Yeah, exactly. But IHOP is 24 hours. So my fiance and I met her there, and we sat down. Everybody already eaten, so we wound up getting drinks and dessert. At the end of the meal, she's like, "Oh, let me cover this for you," and quite properly, my fiance is like, "No, I already paid for it. I do not take money to help people with cases. The only caveat to that is that I live in Central Jersey." Yes, I know it's hard to believe, but Central Jersey does exist. And if you don't understand that joke, it's because you don't live near New Jersey. But
that is also a hill I will die on. The existence of Central Jersey.
Yes. But that said, if you want me to come help you and you live it in upstate New York, 6-hour drive from me, well, the first thing I'm probably going to do is probably try and get you in contact with somebody who can help you closer to you. If necessary, I will make the drive. But anything that requires me to drive more than 2 hours, I'm going to ask you for gas money. Because I don't work a 9 to 5 job. I work 4 p.m. to midnight, Monday through Friday. I don't make that much money. As much as I'd like to, I can't drop everything and drive all over the world on the drop of a hat. So we can find you somebody closer, or you can help me. And I've never turned anyone down. I've never actually had it come up that I had to travel so far that I couldn't find somebody who could help them, or they couldn't give me the gas money. But I'll never turn somebody down because of money. That's not what this is about. I have a Patreon for the show. If you want to donate to it in the name of me being able to use it to help people with cases, please feel free to do so. I have a page on a website. What's the name of it? Called Gig Salad, which is a place for people who want a speaker on a subject. You go there, you can find them. So I offer my services as a speaker on the paranormal. And I charge for that because that's what it's not a website for people to come speak for you for free. You pay them for it. I don't charge for cases. Even, the woman in question got a hold of me through Gig Salad. I just said, here's my email address, email me. I'm not charging you for this. Get in touch. And that's how that happened. Because if it's a little bit of an end run around them, because normally you're supposed to get at least they get a percentage of it, but it's like, I'm not getting paid for this, neither are you.
Of course.
And I'll say this, the show's never been profitable. I would absolutely love for the day to come that I actually saw an income. I'm not even saying like I could quit my job and just do this income, where I get more money out of it than I put into it, even if it's by $10.
I don't think we've even broke even.
Exactly. I do this because I want to do this. I do this because I love doing this. And quite honestly, I do this because I get to talk to some of the coolest, most interesting people. I love the guests that we've had on. I'm going to be reaching out to some folks. My longtime listeners will recognize names. I want to reach out to Patrick Thomas and John French. I want to reach out to John Hartness as well. Try and get them back on. Both because they're friends of mine and they're really good guests. For those of you who don't know, Patrick Thomas writes a series. Well, he writes a bunch of things, but the things he's most famous for and is a series called Murphy's Law, which is about a bar in New York run by a leprechaun. John French is a retired crime scene investigator who has a series that recently finished about Bianca Jones, who is the detective in the Baltimore Police Department that investigates monsters. Both of them also have a soft spot in my heart because I actually show up as a minor character in a couple of John's stories. And then most recently, they did. The two of them are working together on a series called Agents of the Abyss, which kind of reimagines classic Universal monsters in more modern settings. Like there's a story done about Frankenstein's monster during the Second World War. There's the book that I'm particularly getting at, Detectives of the Abyss, which is a story where in this parallel universe, basically Count Dracula came out of hiding, announced himself to the world, got a hold of a whole bunch of Martian technology from the War of the Worlds, and said Transylvania is now an independent kingdom, and he will henceforth call me King Vlad. So Vlad has an issue because Transylvania, of course, under his rule, has become a safe haven for vampires and werewolves and all other creatures of the night. And in his court, which has Lord Retuvin and Lady Carmilla and other classic vampires, somebody's murdered a vampire. So he sends an emissary to England to contact MI6, who passes the message up the line to the head of MI6 at the time, one Mycroft Holmes.
Of course.
Mycroft, of course, passes it on to his brother, Sherlock. But turns out Drac doesn't want Sherlock because they have history. He wants Sherlock's protege, Dr. Jane Watson. Jane learned to be a doctor from her father and a detective from her godfather, and to hunt ghosts from Kornacki the Ghost Finder and Kelvin Mears. They are really wonderful books. I highly recommend checking them out. John Hartness is also a great deal of fun. He has a series called Quincy Harker Demon Hunter, which is about the son of Jonathan Harker and Mina Murray from the novel Dracula, living because of his DNA being tweaked by Daddy and Mommy's long relationship with Dracula. So he is living in South Carolina in the modern day with his uncle Luke Card, who, yes, he survived the book, which he also wrote. The other book John has that's absolutely wonderful and I recommend is Bubba the Monster Hunter, which is exactly what it sounds like. Bubba is a redneck monster hunter. And it's exactly as absurd as you think it is.
Nice.
Yeah, they're all good guys. I haven't talked to John quite a while, but Pat and John French are usually good, happy to come on the show, so we could probably drag them in or offer them shiny.
I thought.
Uh-oh, that's dangerous.
Yeah. Well, something we haven't done yet that could be fun. You mentioned before about getting other people that know more than me. We could get Dacre on, and rather than talking about writing, we could just talk vampire folklore with him, and because he's studied so much of it in his research on.
Oh yeah, that's an excellent idea.
And Bram Stoker, I'd love to like exchange ideas with him. And
so would I. I think I'll reach out. And Dacre's I know he has a bunch of projects going on. I mentioned already the prequel and the sequel. He also has a series of comics called Stokerverse.
Yeah.
Out. He has a role-playing game also called Stokerverse. I wouldn't mind trying to reach out through Dacre and trying to get the guy who wrote that on as well.
Sure.
And again, I know that Dacre and the Experience Transylvania folks are putting together a spend a night in Dracula's castle, which is specifically Bran Castle, the castle the book uses as the basis for Dracula's castle, which I've been to Bran while I was in Romania. It's a beautiful castle. If I could afford it, I'd be jumping to go.
Yeah.
But Dacre is an absolute gentleman. Nora and Gloria, which are the people from the tour, absolutely delightful women. I highly, if you have the chance, absolutely go on one of the tours. It's completely worth the money. And I will also say, aside from the fact I can't say enough nice things about them, Romania is absolutely spectacularly beautiful. There's a lot of still wild forest there. I mean, we stayed in Mount Calamari National Park, Mount Calamari is an extinct volcano that lines up pretty well with where the castle in the book is supposed to be. And there's a guy a friend of Dacre's, who did calculated out the travel times in the book, and it figured out where the castle should be, and it should be on this volcano. So part of our tour was a 5-hour walking tour, 3 hours uphill to get there and 2 hours back. To which I said, the land is lovely. It sounds like a very nice time. Let me know how it goes. Because I'm not in great shape. I have lots of leg problems. There's no way on earth I could have done a 5-hour hike. And the reality of it is, there were thunderstorms. The last place on earth you want to be caught in a thunderstorm is on the top of a mountain. So the rest of the tour didn't go very far either. But the area is gorgeous. One of the other fun things about Romania and Transylvania in particular is that the largest surviving population of wolves in Europe, 10% of the surviving wolves in the entirety of Europe are in Transylvania. In fact, folks may have heard that wolves have been reintroduced to the Black Forest in Germany after being gone, I think, a couple of centuries. Yeah, those wolves are from Transylvania. It's the same species of wolf. They transplanted them.
Nice.
Yeah. That's my one regret about the entire tour. We spent 2 nights in this beautiful rustic cabin in the Carpathians near the volcano. It is an area that are known to be wolves, so they're very high up in the mountains and they avoid humans. 2 nights, I didn't hear a single one howling. That would have been perfect. And just an excuse to go back and see if I can hear one next time. But okay, so we have, it looks like 3 people listening live. Does anybody have any questions? Otherwise, I'm probably going to wrap it up pretty soon. Brian, if you're free, Brian, we'll do, or even if you're not, I can always do it solo. But we'll do a show on Saturday or Sunday, rather, not Saturday. Why am I saying Saturday? I got planned Saturday. You usually have planned Saturday. Saturday doesn't work.
Yeah, no, but Sunday after game and all of that.
Yeah,
we can probably try to do something.
We'll figure out a topic between now and then. I'll reach out to Dacre. Start reaching out to other people. See who else we can try. We can shoehorn, bribe, or threaten into joining us.
Yeah.
Might be fun at some point to get like a couple of the people that we had, because John Hartness has written vampire stories. John French has written them. Pat's written them. I wonder. So it'd be cool to see how many of them we could bring together to do a panel on vampires as well.
Oh wow! Yeah, we could maybe try to get Jonathan Mayberry back.
Oh yeah,
it was a great episode.
John Mayberry was a really good interview and a very nice guy. I would love to bring him back on.
Yeah, and he's done a lot of vampire stuff, obviously.
Well, yeah, V Wars is one of the things he's famous for.
Yeah, and he's written so much else.
So okay. I'll reach out to folks I know. You reach out to John. Even if we can't get them all together, I'd love to have all of them back individually or in groups. So sure. Please re-extend an invite to John to join us. Coming near the end of my school time, and the fact I'm only taking 2 classes next semester, I have more time, so I could sit down, maybe watch V Wars on Netflix or listen to audiobooks. This is a good. I like this plan. This is a good plan. Anyone listening who happens to think, oh wait, I know somebody interesting, feel free to, my email is in the description. Feel free, if you have questions, concerns, if you think your house is haunted and you need somebody to help you, reach out. If you don't live in New Jersey, because not everybody lives in Satan's left armpit, That's okay. I'm happy to give you some advice and try to point you to a group, to a more local group. Um, the usual place I'll point you, I'll tell you right now, is though for that matter, if you live further out, go to TAPS, the Atlantic Paranormal Society's website, and they have a whole page where if you have a haunted house and you need help, you can submit your information and they'll help you find somebody. I don't have any. I've never worked with TAPS. I don't know the TAPS people personally, but my mentor Lou worked with them a number of times. Never had anything bad to say about the group. I've sent people to them before. I haven't heard anything bad about them. That's I want to say. I guess real quick, there are a couple of ground rules I've always had for the show. There aren't many, but there's at least like 3. One is I don't badmouth other people's religions. It ain't my place. I'm a Christian. I will not apologize for that. I should not apologize for that. But I will not disrespect your beliefs because I'm not God. I'm not entitled to tell you if you're right or wrong. I judge people for what they do, not what they believe. If you hurt people, we have a problem. If you don't hurt people, I don't care I don't care if you worship the devil, as long as you're not hurting people, frankly. You're welcome, Teresa. Rule number 2 is I don't badmouth other paranormal groups. I will talk about traits in paranormal groups I do not like. For example, taking money to help people. I will not specifically call out a group or an individual. If you ever hear me mention a group or an individual on the show, assume it's because I think well of them. But don't assume that if I don't talk about a group or person, I don't think well of them. There are a lot of people in the paranormal community, many of whom are very good and wonderful, talented people. I don't know them all. I can't comment on every single person. And the third rule of thumb I have is there are some topics I won't cover. You will never on this channel, for example, see a video about flat Earth because I find it offensively stupid. We're not going. We're never going. I hate to disappoint any regulars, but we are never going there. Not if you paid. Well, maybe if you paid me enough money, but we're probably talking at least triple digits.
Well, it'd be a really short show.
Depressingly, no, it probably wouldn't. If I was really going to do it, there's a couple of atheists that have done excellent debunks that I'd reach out to, and I know at least one of them. And I tried it, and I try to make it. If I was going to do it, if I'm going to do a show about it, I'm going to do as good a show about it as I can. Okay. I just don't want to do a show about it.
Yeah.
Particularly because the core assumption I've always had is that the people that listen to my show are intelligent. So I think you people are too smart for me to need me to tell you that the world isn't flat. I always feel it's better to assume an intelligent audience over a stupid audience as well, because you don't want to insult your audience. And also, in my experience, our regulars are usually pretty intelligent people.
Yeah.
I mean, like Brian and I is talking about the subject. You must be pretty smart. But I think that's going to wrap it up for tonight. For those of you, one of the most of you don't actually know, but to a little slightly overshare, back in October of last year, one of the reasons the show went on hiatus as long as it did is I'm a giant klutz, and I always have been, and I lost my balance at work and fell and hit the sidewalk hard. I broke my right shoulder in 4 places, and then blew out the socket under my right eye. I got the shoulder fixed February, I want to say. And then just 3 weeks ago, I got a prosthetic put in under my eye to fix the blowout. But it leaves me in a fair amount of numbness and pain. So, in fact, it went longer than I probably originally intended, but that's okay because we're having a good time. That's going to wrap things up, folks. Thank you so much for joining us if you watched us live. If you didn't watch us live, thank you for tuning in later, because obviously if you're here, you did. If you liked what we do, please consider helping us out by giving us a like, giving us a subscribe. We'd love to reach 1,000 subscribers. Questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to email me, kevinm.paranormalencyclopedia@gmail.com. You can also leave a comment. I always check those. If you're feeling generous and you really like what we do, you can also consider going to our Patreon, patreon.com/demonology, which is also in the description. But that's going to do it for tonight. We will be back on Sunday. Look on Facebook for the Paranormal Encyclopedia. There was already a Paranormal Encyclopedia page, so I had to put the "the" in to get the name. I'll post the link. It'll probably be 7 or 8 o'clock at night. Don't hold me to that because Brian and I need to talk and figure that out, those details out. But sometime on Sunday night, we will have a show. And then we'll be back to... Today is officially the last day of being on medical leave for the surgery to fix the blowout. So I should be back to work tomorrow if all the paperwork went. Bureaucracy will kill us all, won't it? But if paperwork goes through, I'm back to work tomorrow, which means I'm not free during the week. So we'll be doing... And Brian and I always have things going on, so Saturdays are usually not good. So we're shooting for every Sunday, unless something comes up. Like I have a case right now that I may have to take a Sunday or two off. If other things come up, I may have to do so. But we'll try to keep everybody updated through the Facebook page. That'll do it for tonight, everyone. This is Kevin Mears, your demonologist and the Paranormal Encyclopedia, saying good night and God bless. Brian?
And Brian McKinley saying keep your fangs sharp.
Good night, everyone.